Alright, Liners, so today we are jumping back into Limit Breaker quests. In this case, to try out some different teams, showcase some teams to help you get to stage 19 and maybe even get further than stage 19 for your own personal records. I've had a lot of fun trying out these teams, and for the most part, we have 6 teams lined up. Some teams using similar characters. We are trying to use the best of the best here, but there's definitely a few replacements in any given team, and we'll get around to talking about those replacements when we do get to those specific teams. So team number 1 is the team that we did showcase yesterday. It's not as good of a team I thought it would be, I'll be honest. But it's still a good team nonetheless, and should be enough to get you to stage 19, especially if you have, again, worked on these characters. Now, for the most part, with the character we are showcasing here, I haven't removed their transcendence. I don't have the coins to do that, I'll be honest. So while I might get further than you because maybe my characters are more worked on, even with the bare minimum SP level 10, level 20 link slots, they should be easy enough to get you to at least stage 19. But team number 1 consists of Rangiku, Ichigo, and also Ichibei. These are the accessories that I'm using on Rangiku. These are our links. She's SP level 10 with full stamina and also SP. Second slot is Ichigo. In this case, we're using these 3 accessories, these 3 links. He is max transcended, keep that in mind, with full stamina and also long shot as bonus abilities. And then lastly, we have Ichibei, exact same 3 accessories, 3 recharge and side links, SP level 10, with full stamina and also SP as bonus abilities. So of course, the way this team does work, and the main important character on this team is actually renewed Ichigo. Now, in a way, he is the slowest character in the team too, so you can definitely replace him for someone else. This team doesn't entirely need him, but I just like the idea of having a full technique team, 3 characters, all getting their strong attacks ready when they're next available. And that's thanks to Ichigo's recharge in between stages, right? He does get the damage buff for being a ranged character and having human killer, but he definitely wasn't the fastest character, and that's coming from someone that's using a max transcended character, right? So if there's one character to replace with this team, it's definitely Ichigo, but he did do solid for the most part. Obviously, Rangiku's a good character. While she doesn't have the greatest kit for Limit Breaker, it doesn't really stop her from clearing her quest fast to begin with. And paired with Ichigo, her having all her strong attacks ready to go means that you can just spam all your strong attacks. So you don't have to be worrying about strong attack placement, because when you're not having those strong attacks come back every single stage, you know, Rangiku's range collision, her SA 1 and 2, definitely does start to become a tad bit of an issue. And obviously with the recharge in between stages, it does allow Ichibei to be a really fast character too. I mean, this character's all about being a fast character to begin with, right? The more kills he gets, the faster he kills, the more he can use his strong attacks, the faster he builds the gauge, and the stronger the character becomes when the gauge is active. And thanks to Ichigo, you get to spam Ichibei's strong attacks every time you move into a new stage. And I always recommend using the SA3 because that builds up the most gauge, and by the time you get to the final stage, the poised enemy stages, you should have the gauge active, and then you're probably going to get the gauge active another time before it even wears off. So Ichibei is able to have like max damage potential thanks to Ichigo, and that's essentially how the team does work. It's also important to note too, is that Rangiku does actually give 40% more damage to any technique story pump, and that's why if you are using Ichibei in slot number 3, I almost recommend having Rangiku, because they really do work well together, and that's also why Ichibei can clear even faster, because when he does apply weakening, not only is he doing 50% more damage because the enemies are weakened, you're then also doing an additional 40% more damage, so 90% damage to any status afflicted enemy with Ichibei, and the character itself already has a crazy damage output, especially when the gauge again is active, which for the most part is more active than not. So it's a pretty solid team. The weakest point being Ichigo, but he does make the team overall more fun. Definitely a good enough team to get you to stage 19 if that's your main goal with these particular Limit Breaker quests. Moving on to team number 2, it's a very similar team setup here. Again, if you're using Ichibei, if you're using Rangiku, or vice versa, you want to use the other character, right? They just go so well together in this particular quest. The difference now, though, is that we're using Ruroka instead of Ichigo. The reason for this is because Ruroka does have a better damage output, given that she is a hard range character, so naturally she will hit harder here. But the downside is that Ichibei and also Rangiku don't get their strong attacks recovered in between stages, but you'll notice it doesn't really make that much of a difference. This is the more traditional and better team in my opinion. It's also a lot easier to build to a certain extent because you're not using 3 technique characters, so your accessories and also links aren't spread thin. It's definitely more manageable here to use 2 tech characters over 3. In Ruroka's case though, we're going with these 3 accessories. These 3 particular links could have made it actually better if I used Ichigo, for example. Really powerful link with that. SP level 10 with full stamina and also focus the bonus abilities. You can give it SP. I think they both perform around the same. So as already mentioned, now that we don't have Ichigo in the team, Rangiku's range collision definitely does become a tad bit of a problem. You will see during these, simple, fast stages, you might have to use 2, sometimes maybe even 3 strong attacks because her SA1 isn't a beam forward, right? It can't just take down an entire wave multiple ways with one attack. So if anything, that does slow you down a tad bit. Likewise with Ichibei, right? Since he isn't getting his recharge in between stages, it's not that big of a deal with him because he does have good strong attacks, but there are going to be those few seconds of downtime where you have to maybe use your Nad string, maybe use a few extra strong attacks just to build up the gauge once more so then you get your max damage potential. But of course, the great thing here is that Ruka herself is clearing her stage faster, so it balances out and it actually becomes even better. Ruka's a really good character, right? I mean, to no one's surprise, she was the Limit Breaker character for January. I guess anytime we can bring a heart range character, Ruka might be the best option here. She gets more damage the more kills she get, and because it's Limit Breaker, you easily max out your damage output within 2 rooms. If you're not using Rangiku, who also does provide the team heal, Ruka also does the same thing, right? So in the case you're using a character, let's say like Ichibei, for example, if he takes damage and you're using a lot of full stamina damage abilities, well, now his DPS is significantly decreased, and maybe it ruins the run if you're trying to go for the highest score possible. So having Ruka, likewise Rangiku in the team, it does mean that if you do take damage, maybe near the end of the stage, and you still clear that particular stage fast, well, you can get back up to full stamina the next time the character is available. But one thing too with Ruka is that she does have a team party buff after 50 kills. It's a universal team party buff, 20% more strong attack damage to any character. That goes for herself, and likewise it goes for Ichibei and also Rangiku. So really good team synergy once more. Rangiku buffing Ichibei. You have a team heal from Ruka and also Rangiku. Keep in mind those don't stack. Ichibei and Rangiku can still clear their stages relatively fast anyway, without the recharge in between stages from Ichigo. And then Ruka's also clearing her stages significantly faster, making quick work of those human mobs that can be quite annoying to deal with. Moving on to our third team. The idea is very similar, and I know a lot of you have been waiting for me to try out this character, right? 1000 Year Blood Aizen, still to this day the best Nad character in the game. And since he himself is a ranged technique character with a Ranki killer, he meets all the requirements, and some would even say this character is better than Rangiku. And that is, you know, entirely valid. That's the good thing about this Limit Breaker quest, is that if you don't have Rangiku, you still have an equally, if not better character in the form of 1000 Year Blood Aizen. But that's not to say Rangiku's bad, just keep that in mind. So in Aizen's case, we're going with a Golden Chappy Hollow Bait. Keep in mind the footage you're about to see, I didn't actually have 30% attack on the Golden Chappy. It didn't make that much of a difference, so it wasn't the entirely best builds, but it is something to keep in mind. We're using 3 no attack damage soul traits. He's 2 out of 5. He has no 10 attack and also focus, with full stamina and also long shot as bonus abilities. Ruka is the exact same here. And then we're also using Yuha to allow us to have 2 extra soul bombs. And then we're also using Yuha in slot number 3. As always, in any Limit Breaker quest, you can always use Yuha in slot 3. And more often than not, he makes the team better, right? He gives himself recharge in between stages. He has a high damage output, a good soul bomb with the weakened defense as well. And most importantly, after a certain number of kills, he allows your entire team to get an extra soul bomb. So in Yuha's case, we're using these 3 accessories, these 3 particular links. He's 2/5, so level 10 SP and focus, with full stamina damage and also SP as bonus abilities. So when it comes to Aizen, he's a great character here, right? Now, usually Nad characters aren't that good for Limit Breaker. Then again, it depends on what your goal is, right? If your goal is to get to like 30 plus, more often than not, you don't want to use a Nad character. Main reason is because they're usually slower on the easier stages, but they do make up for it on the more harder stages, where there are points enemies, because they have constant damage output. They don't have to wait for strong attacks to recover. In Aizen's case, that does apply to him too, but then Aizen's also just a really good Nad character anyway, having a high damage output thanks to when he does inflict the stat element, you get that 80% attack boost, but then he also does have the gauge, which lowers his cooldown for his strong attacks, potentially allowing you to stack that boost, give you more protection and more boost to your other team members. But it also gives him 100% more bruiser. So when you get to those final boss stages where you are going against the poison enemies, you make very, very quick work of those enemies. It's really fun, I'm not going to lie. Obviously, Ruka is doing her own thing, and then Yuha performs exactly how you expect him to, right? Every time he's available, his strong attacks are back. He allows you to have 2 soul bombs. And since we're using 2 SP characters here, both of them coincidentally with weakened defense, when you do decide to use your soul bomb, you clear that stage, of course, even faster. And again, thanks to the fact that we are using Ruka, she does allow us to get back up to full stamina in case we do take damage. Ideally, you still don't want to take damage anyway, but she does potentially allow you to make that one mistake. And with this team in particular, I mean, we got upwards to like stage 30 plus. So it's probably the best thing that you can make without the need of using the characters Caleb want you to bring, Kiryu, Rangiku, and Ichibei. It was a really impressive team and had a lot of fun playing with it. I think you can potentially squeeze 1 extra stage, but for the most part, most of the teams that you are seeing here, if they can go that far, are probably hard capped at stage 33. But still, any team that can go to 30, in my opinion, is a really good team. That then takes us into our 4th team, and to my surprise, maybe it shouldn't be surprising, I don't know, but it's funny how this team just works. Now again, your Transcendence level might vary from mine, and the performance might vary the same too, but I think it's easy enough to get to stage 19. So the general idea with this team is that we're using 3 characters that don't really synergize together, but they all have the skill recharge strong attacks in between stages. So every time they're available, their strong attacks are good to go. So in Ichigo's case, he actually does get a range and technique damage buff here. So if anything, is more appropriate to be used in slot number 1 over 2, of course. And this makes him really good in slot 1. I chose to bring these 3 accessories. Keep in mind there are like 2 hidden enemies in slot number 1, mostly when you get to the poised enemy stage. So I just chose to give him a Zaya Pill as an accessory, because there were times I did waste a strong attack or 2 because the enemies just kind of ruined it, right? So I definitely recommend giving him a Zaya Pill if you are using Ichigo in slot 1. These are the 3 accessories that I'm using against same Transcendence level here. We're using Kyogre in slot 2. As always, Kyogre is always usable in every Limit Breaker quest. In this case, while he isn't a ranged character, while he does snap killer, he is a heart character. And Kyogre, as always, has a really high damage output. Frenzy plus 2, 80% SP boost, more damage at full stamina, more damage to trained enemies, and most importantly, Rampage. That and the fact that he does recharge his strong attacks, yeah, even with not that many damage buffs here, you can still use him. So these are the 3 accessories that we are using on him. These are the 3 links. And he's only SP level 10. Would have loved to have him 2-5 here. The extra focus would have made a massive difference. Also, we'll understand he's immune to freeze, so it's even better. And we're giving him full stamina and long shot as bonus abilities. And then Yuha, same builds, same setup. So with this team, you just get to spam your strong attack. You don't have to ever worry about your strong attack placement. And to be fair, the placement for these characters are all good because they all have good strong attacks, right? Maybe with the exception of Ichigo, his SA1 not being too good, but at least he does have a beam SA2. So more often than not, if you do position yourself correctly, you can easily take out multiple waves with just 1 strong attack. If not 2, at the most 3 strong attacks is enough to get through all the stages. While Ichigo himself isn't immune to fire, so that definitely can become an issue because you are losing your full stamina damage. He does have an increased chance to inflict weakening and drain, so you're easily able to get back up to full stamina. And on the poised enemy stage in particular, it's not really that much of an issue because the burn pools are kind of spread out. I don't think once in any point did I ever get burned when using Ichigo in slot number 1. Kyogre does his own thing. I recommend not getting too close to the poised enemies, the humans, because they do attack from afar and attack very fast. Thanks to Kyogre's really good SA1 and 2, you can kind of just use your attacks from afar, keep your distance from the enemies, and lure them into corners and then flash step away. By giving them long stride, it does give them that protection to not get hit. If you do though, you can and should be able to get back up to full stamina. Yuha, of course, is performing the exact same as we did in the other team, just a really good character overall. I would recommend using your Sobom on Kyogre and also Yuha stage, mainly because Ichigo is getting enough buffs here, but in my particular team, Ichigo was the most built, given that he is max transcended, whereas Kyogre is only 1-5, so using my Sobom on Kyogre stage was what I thought was best to do. I usually like to use my Sobom when the SP boost wears off, so I get that extra guaranteed 10 seconds of the 80% SP boost. And if you can do that while also having 2 free strong attacks ready at the time, that's even better. Likewise, the same with Yuha. I don't like using the Sobom when the SP boost is wearing off. Usually, I don't keep track of it, so I don't want to use a Sobom. Apply Weaken on every enemy, and then the SP boost wears off within like a second. So usually I like to wait for it. In Yuha's case, he does apply weaken defense, and when you do use your Soul Bomb, especially if you reapply the SP boost, you're pretty much guaranteed to clear that stage, the poise stage, which usually is the more difficult one, in like less than 10 seconds. It's really, really good. Once more with this team, it also got really far, surprisingly. Maybe it shouldn't be a surprise, I don't know, but it was easy able to crack into stage 30, I believe getting upwards to stage 33. Team number 5 are going back to using Aizen. We're using Kyogre in slot 2. This time, though, the only difference is that we're bringing Ichigo in slot number 3. Of course, stage number 3 is the flexible slot. You can always bring any character you want to here. And since we can get away using Kyogre in slot 2, and likewise, since there are Quincy enemies, as always, Ichigo's always worth bringing. Now, of course, my Ichigo is max transcended. That definitely did help out. But remember, the way Ichigo does work is that he does have the increased chance to inflict star elements against only Soipens and Quincy's. And since we're going against Quincy's, we have that increased chance to inflict weakening and lacerate. And then, of course, most importantly, Ichigo's SA3 being the Getsugo Jujisho does hit very, very hard. Thanks to Kyogre on the team, we're able to get all our strong attacks ready the next time he's available. And that makes clearing these stages in particular quite fast, actually. You, of course, could get away using Quincy Ichigo in slot 1 once more. Likewise, you can also use Rangiku here if you want to. I just chose to use Aizen here. I don't think it made that much of a difference, but Aizen, of course, is a good character here. Kyogre, of course, is clearing his stages exactly how it was in the previous team. And then Ichigo is able to clear his stages significantly fast too, since we are guaranteed to get all our strong attacks next time the character is available. Of course, you only have one Soul with this team, so that's also why I wanted to use Aizen instead, because Aizen doesn't need to use a Soul, right? Since my Ichigo is more worked on when when compared to Kyogre, because unfortunately I didn't get dupes of him. I chose the Sobomb using Kyogre just to clear his stage a tad bit faster, because at least with my Ichigo, since he is max transcended, his SA3 alone is basically like a Sobomb in of itself, right? When using Ichigo's SA3, you can usually use it going into the final wave, if not when the final wave does begin. If you do apply Weakening Lazo, which you do have the increased chance to do so, more often than not, the poison enemies should be dealt with very, very quick. Once more, with this particular team, we were able to get upwards to stage 32, was maybe like 5-7 seconds shy of actually getting into 33 like the other teams, so this one also has very similar potential, despite us not even using Yuha. And then for my final team, this is something that I just wanted to try, and I can't believe it actually worked. So we're using Bambietta, Christmas Yachiru, and also Yuha. So we're using Bambi here because she's also another good ranged technique character. While she doesn't have like the most fluid kit, it still worked. And thanks to this team, it kind of makes sense. So we're using these 3 accessories, right? Giving her as much SP as possible. We're using these 3 links. In my case, she's 3-5, level 10 focus, level 10 attack, level 10 SP, with full stamina and also long stride as bonus abilities. We are then using Yachiru, who relatively surprised me, I will be honest. She's basically like a mini Kyogre for the most part. She does have the recover recharge in between stages, which is really good. But most importantly, she herself is a ranged character, so she is getting that 4 times damage output. In her case, though, we use these 3 accessories, and we use these 3 links. She's SP level 10, and we give her full stamina and also long stride as bonus abilities. And then again, last character slot is Yuha. Now, there's definitely a lot of ways you can play around this. You don't have to use Yuha. The benefit, of course, with Yuha is that we do get an extra Sobomb, right? You could easily put Kyogre in slot 3. Likewise, you could also put Quincy Ichigo in slot 3. And that would actually maybe be more beneficial, because then it allows Bambietta to have all her strong attacks come back when she's next available. During my run in particular, we really didn't need that second Sobomb. Now, while it might have looked like we did when you see the Bambietta stage, I did make a lot of mistakes during this run. If I improved on those mistakes, I honestly probably didn't even need the second Sobomb. Now, keep in mind that Bambietta doesn't go through hidden enemies, so when you are on that final stage, the poison enemy stage, where there are hidden enemies, you can just get around it by just not Sobombing right from the get-go. But if you did have the hidden enemy skill through a bonus ability or a Zeta Pill, you could just nuke the entire stage. And that's when you get to apply weaker defense, and that in combination with your barrage attack, you are able to do a lot of damage. But what also really works well with this team is that since Bambietta has no way to stay at full stamina, and wants to be at full stamina, that's where Yachiru comes in, right? Despite her not being like the best character in the game, she was still clearing her stages really fast. But her SA2 being a barrier attack was really good, because it allowed your entire team just to have this constant extra protection, right? Unless Bambietta or Yuha was in a stage longer than 20 seconds, they essentially always had the barrier on, and that allowed me to take advantage of Bambietta's barrage attack, which was actually really, really good. There was a lot of synergy, surprisingly, with this particular team. Again, I kind of made a lot of mistakes here, so I was really rushing on time here. We potentially could get further, but I did have to end up using 2 of my Sobombs on the Bambietta stage. But then again, you know, the next stage was the Yachiru stage, and Yachiru, you know, wouldn't clear the quest that fast, and she doesn't have any powerful Sobomb damage. She can't apply star elements. So I think with this team in particular, you probably are hard capped where I ended it on. And that's basically the 6 teams that we had set up for today. Maybe you can make more. Again, you can mix and match with these teams, right? While we did use 6 teams with a few similar characters, you can definitely replace a few of these characters here. You know, for example, on this team, right? You could take out Kyogre and put Yachiru, and that team also works equally as good. Likewise, you could take out Aizen, maybe put Bambietta, maybe put Quincy Ichigo, the new Rangiku. While we didn't use that many diverse units within the 16 that we did have here, all the teams performed really well, were really fun playing through them. And through these experiments with different teams, I was able to actually improve my score, getting my max score now to stage 33, which I think is actually pretty good. Because technically, I didn't even need to use Rangiku for that. With that said, hope you liked and enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.